I really want to thank to the organizers of this meeting for their idea and initiative to prolong the former series of the Castle meetings. I have to confess that I was deeply moved when my name appeared as a patron. It really delighted me. I was asked to deliver a few words about my life involvement in heat flow to inspire others. Okay, my pleasure to do. Massimo here showed something what I prepared for you, so I do not want to repeat, but I shall continue now. So, what about myself? It is now unbelievable 62 years since I joined the Geophysical Institute of that time Czechoslovak Academy of Sciences in Prague in 1960. No doubt, this was the lucky moment in my life and starting point in my later professional career. I became a graduate student with Dr. Jiří Vaněk as my supervisor, and Jiří farsightedly selected geothermics for my PhD thesis. It's important to know geothermics at that time was a brand new discipline. So being completely unexperienced, it was a hard job. However, on the other hand, this choice gave me a wonderful freedom to organize my activities. I fell in love with geothermics, and heat flow became my favorite. It was an ideal combination of office work, library, field work, and laboratory activities. The second lucky point followed when my colleague Milan Krešl came to the institute a year later. He, as a civil engineer, took care about the instrumentation technique, and we quickly established an able working team. Within a short time, we managed to set up a sizable number of heat flow data covering most of the Czechoslovak territory. Well, this is not such a large territory. Next, the lucky point was my first conference abroad to attend the 14th IUGG General Assembly at Zurich in 1967. Here I presented this heat flow data, interpreted as a simple heat flow map. This was one of the very first attempts at that time existing. At Zurich, I also got familiar with that time arising new International Heat Flow Commission, as was mentioned here actually, which started only in 1963 at Berkel under Francis Birch leadership. At Zurich, also I agreed on a potential visit to Canada as a postdoctorate fellow. Now, year 1968. Soviet tanks in Prague, brutal invasion and occupation, shameful time. My visit to Canada was in danger. I did not wait. Through Vienna, I got to Canada. Canada for me, a land of dreams. And I became postdoctorate fellow at Dominion Observatory at Ottawa, working with Alan Jessop. My assignment at the time was to interpret temperature depth records of 3D boreholes drilled across the Kapuskasing Gravita high structure in northeastern Ontario. Namely, to describe the relation between heat flow and radiogenic heat production to define Canadian Shield as one of the heat flow provinces. However, my real interest at the time concentrated in the puzzling curvature observed in all three temperature logs. Seemingly, the inexplicable problem resulted finally in the beginning of what later became known as a borehole climate reconstruction technique. 2 years later, in 1970, I returned to my homeland. Good question why I did so. I could stay in Canada. Well, My wife was homesick. We expected the first child. Being back in Prague, the miserable time following the first years of Soviet occupation still lasted, but very luckily the first furious witch hunt was over. Heat flow was not a political issue, and I survived with only some inconveniences. I continued to work in the Geophysical Institute. And now a digression. After successful International Geophysical Year in 1958, all the following 60s were a rapidly growing interest in all earth sciences. In addition, the first worldwide oil crisis turned the demand to new energy sources, geothermal energy being one of them. At that time, geothermics really flourished. In the Eastern Bloc, an extensive scientific initiative, the so-called KPG program, was proposed. The obvious aim was to secure a certain watch of the Soviets above the subordinary countries. Anyhow, this role, fortunately enough, soon got in vain, at least in geothermics or in geophysical sciences. And this cooperation generally proved to be quite beneficial. We, as a handful of geothermists of this working group, 1.4 for geothermics, regularly were or used to meet once a year in one of the cooperating countries. Czechoslovakia got its chance in 1976, and we took this workshop in the Liblice Castle, so it was at 76, with some 20-25 participants. This was my first experience how to organize an international meeting, and unknowingly, this event was probably certain germ of the later Castle meetings. Okay, we members of this working group was a relatively good working team, but my vision went a step further. It happened that I managed to smuggle a US colleague who just by accident was visiting Prague among the Eastern Europe participants. This was greatly appreciated by all participants, but it displeased the authorities. And now, when I'm thinking about these incidents which followed, I'm more and more realizing that this was the really very important push. My certain, let's call it mischievousness or whatever it was born. I started to dream to have a real international meeting regardless of any politics. Okay, it took more years to wait, but year 1982 once came and the really Liblice first Castle meeting was here. Now I want to use this opportunity to mention a couple names of my colleagues. The contacts and discussion with them were very fruitful always, and the knowledge I obtained helped me to pave the way to future meetings. First, Professor Ladislav Rybach. Laci is here, thanks. We had a wonderful cooperation. Since mid-70s, we met several times to work on heat flow map of Europe, and we compiled the famous Heat Flow in Europe monograph. Similarly, another fruitful cooperation with the famous duo of two prominent geothermists, Henry Pollack and David Chapman, started when we were preparing the introduction to this monograph. David is also here, my thanks to him. And I have to disclose that David had actively participated in all our 6 Castle meetings, and now he has not hesitated to travel half a globe to attend this one. I might continue and mention other colleagues, Lajos Stegena, Alan Beck, Seja Ujeda, Christian Klauser, Trevor Lewis, Ilmo Kukonen, Valia Hamza, Massimo Verdoya, Xiaopeng Huang, Jacek Majerovic, and many, many more, whom to all I am obliged for their friendship, rich working contacts, private contacts, for discussions and cooperation. Well, we do not have time. So just one name more. I had and I still have good contact with Hungarian Luisi Bodri, with whom we prepared this book, Borehole Climatology, and have written some 40 or more joint publications. Now I shall briefly guide you through all the 6 meetings. I shall not repeat what easily can be found in the web pages. So just allow me a few photographs, and I would like to illustrate each meeting and remind the key moments. The next one. Okay, I have few words about the absurdities of the socialist system. Only 2 of them. Europe is subdivided from west to east. From west to east, no problem to go. Vice versa is very difficult. There is one paradox. Money exchange. Officially, $1 7.20. Unofficially, 5 times more. What a miracle economically. If you use this, you can create money. Maybe a little bit dangerous, but it's possible. But even officially, if you have an international meeting, so $1 is 14 or sometimes 16. For literature is different. This was an important moment. And paradox 2, castles, wonderful places, were taken or were confiscated after the war. Nobody took care, and castles are in ruin. Some were restored as a holiday resort. Academy of Sciences has 2 castles, Bechyně and Liblice. Why not to use? Well, there are no hotels, there are no conference possibilities, but castles are here. So we use castles for this meeting. Okay, this is just a map. There were 5 castles. Bechyně was used twice. You can see. Next. Okay, now the concept of the castle. Bring people together from east and from west. They do not know each other. But Prague or Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia at that time is a place where people can meet. Well, conference premises, facilities, logging, catering is all on one side. It's reasonably far from Prague, not too far, but not too close. There is organized all this. So important thing is that this could be done extremely cheap. You can imagine that the first castle meeting for $110, we can cover absolutely everything from the moment airport or railway station up to the end. And even from this money, we could spend something to help, well, the Soviet young people. There was a group of 20 of them who never could come to West. They were eager to see Westerners. And, well, as we Czech people were also living in a country which was not free, so give them the chance to look a little bit over the curtain. Okay, castles, some extra values. Low conference and free travel support. Castle, this is a noble milieu. Stay in hotel is fine, But castle, it means something. It's a noble place. And my last trump is free beer poster session. You cannot imagine how it helps. It helped me several times to bring conference to Czech Republic. This is something what is unusual, and it's not so costly. And Czech beer is okay. Next one. Okay, so now the first Liblice Castle. Let's go. Next one. Okay, so people were spending time here. It's wonderful. It's something very special. Yeah, but don't forget, when the castle were built or restored 100, 200, 100 years ago, they didn't expect it that we shall make a conference there. So after winter, the castle was like a refrigerator because the heating system was poorly working. But anyhow, castle is castle.
Vladimir?
Yeah?
That was the bed for Henry Pollock and me.
Yeah, I know. This was not in Liblice. This was in Bechyně, because Bechyně is really robust castle. Or so. Okay, next one. So more pictures. Next. Okay, now you have seen these pictures. So participants, 82, Liblice, well, you may recognize. In principle, if somebody wants these pictures, I shall be happy to provide them. Next one. Okay, the key moments. What's important? See the date, 1982. Just 3 weeks ago, we may celebrate 40 years since that time. Okay, here was the principle of this organizing this meeting, to bring together specialities from various countries, namely East to West and West, to meet them and to give them the chance to know each other. You can imagine that if you know that your partner or colleague prefer red or white wine, it's much easier to cooperate with him later. And so, in a way, this was a certain idea to do it on the contrast for the official regime condition. Okay, and there was important. There was an International Heat Flow Commission business meeting open for everybody. So people realize how good is this cooperation, how good is this concept. Next one. Bechyně Castle. It's a wonderful place in southern Bohemia. This was a fortress in the medieval age. It was reconstructed to late Renaissance castle. We had 2 meetings there. Next one. The participants, you have seen it. Next one. Okay, so the key moment. The success of Liblice meeting was a good reason to repeat it 4 or 5 years later. Well, usually there were about 70 to 80 participants, 81 in this case, and they were accompanied by the family members. It very much helped to the smooth program, to social relationship, and for ladies or for accompanying persons, a very attractive program was always prepared. Okay, next one. Few years later, 91, in Bechyně, the same place, but well, mostly the same people. Next. Okay. Actually, this most important here is that the idea of castle meeting was seriously confirmed here. And also, this was the first meeting where after these political changes, so there was a different atmosphere, but I shall come to this a little bit later also. The participation was a little bit poorer because in the practically same time, The IUGG General Assembly in Vienna was held only 2 weeks earlier, so this reduced number of participants. Next one. Okay, Czech Castle. The pronunciation is Czech. I realize that it's a little bit difficult. So there are 3 G's, heckles. So nothing to do with stressed, which is a Czech word for punishment. But Czech has nothing to do with punishment. So this is a beautiful castle, also in southern Bohemia, and we spent good time there. Next one. Okay. You see the progress. So photographs were black and white before, now we have a color photograph. Okay, you may see many colleagues here. Okay, next one. Well, this was more or less a routine, clearly confirmed a stable, established tradition. And it was highly supported by the Heat Flow Commission, by the European Geophysical Society, by the Lithosphere program, attended by 68 scientists from 23 countries. Next one. Okay, participants. Well, sorry, this is the Kostelec castle. It could be more difficult to pronounce. Kostelec, it's easier, but Kostelec is above Black Forest in Czech, Černé lesy. So this may be a little bit difficult to pronounce. The next one, participants. Okay, next one. Okay. Well, routine, successful. Many came repeatedly. Also supported by Heat Flow Commission, by UNESCO project, and so on. Well, we limited the number of lectures and have more short communication. So each poster must have been accompanied by a brief oral presentation. So there was much more discussion. Okay, next one. This is Biko Farm. This is not a castle. This is a huge, nice farm built in Western Bohemia, close to Plzeň. As mentioned, part of program was a visit to the Pilsen brewery with a wonderful dinner, with a wonderful excursion, seeing all the brewery. Next one. Participants. Next one. Okay, this was the last meeting. When we started, so there was only one topic: Earth's crust, geothermics, modeling, and so on. Later, in Bechyně, edit was discussions about the climate warming and so on. And gradually the program starts more broad, geothermics was evolving, and it was felt certain fatigues, tiredness, and so this was the last castle meetings in this series. And of course, this is a little bit my fault, because that time I was actually thinking to bring all the IUGG to Prague, which I was successful just in 2015, when the 26th IUGG was in Prague with close to 5,000 people, so this was something different. Next one. Okay, this is the product. 6 meetings, but 7 special issues, 1 book, 155 contributions, and more than 2,000 pages. Okay, now I have to finish my talk, and there is a certain message. Next one, please. Well, the message. It is not possible to exactly resume with the tradition of the castle meeting in scripto sensu. It is not possible, but it's good. It's very good. At least first two castle meetings, Liblice 82 and Bechyně 86, were the very much product of the time of repression, lack of freedom, no possibility to travel. Under normal conditions, we might have organized another number of similar workshops with a program with participation. But it would now not possible to have the same atmosphere or that spirit which at least some of the Liblice participants felt. And this spirit was very specific, and that's why the Castle Meetings series became legendary. I am happy that Potsdam colleagues are ready to continue and started their series and to continue. This new series should serve as a certain reminder, considering now what's happening few thousand kilometers to the east in Ukraine. We certainly need such a reminder. Well, I wish you great success with that new series. Thank you for consideration. Next slide. Next slide.